When researching places to explore, I came across this, a landscape in the middle of the Mojave Desert reminiscent of the red rocks and geology you're more likely to find in Utah or Arizona. But given that this is in the middle of California and can rival the likes of Bryce Canyon National Park, I knew I had to check it out. And what I found is that this park has not just colorful rock formations, but a colorful history that spans millennia. Alright, I just got here and I gotta say I have looked at a lot of pictures of this place. I spent quite a bit of time on Google Earth looking around, seeing where I might want to hike, and despite all of that, driving in, like, I'm just still in awe of this place. Like, I can't get over how surreal this looks. I feel like the camera really does not do it justice. This wall is massive and it feels like a cathedral. I feel like the closest place I've been to like this would be either Bryce Canyon or Goblin Valley, Utah. But even still, this place is so unique and I haven't even started exploring. Like, this is the main first pull-off that you get to when you come to see this. I think I'm just going to start heading off in this direction and start seeing what we can find. All the green in the desert. I actually had to wait to come out here because of all the rain that the desert's got. They had to close some of the roads because they were washed out, but they finally repaired them. So here we are. Wow. I really hope the color on some of these mountains is showing. When I first found out about this place and I started researching it as a place to check out, I ended up going down so many different rabbit holes because the history here is just so rich. You've got the geologic history, which I plan to touch on a little bit in this video, but then you've also got a lot of mining history here, and then indigenous and prehistoric history, which is also really rich in this area. This area was used often as a travel route. It's kind of a natural gap in the mountains, which we've put a highway through it, but it's been used for centuries for trading and travel, and there's a lot of evidence of the people who inhabited this place long before any historic settlement began. I think there's going to be plenty of cool geology on display in this video, so hopefully that is enticing. Like, I've barely scratched the surface so far and it already feels otherworldly. In fact, let me show you what I'm looking at. We've also got lots of flowers blooming after all the rain, which is just a lovely touch. We've got a dry wash that isn't actually all that dry. Got some actual water flowing. So the further that we hike in this direction, we're actually moving through the geologic layers and getting closer to the most recent ones. So all of this rock is kind of tilted this way, and so we started hiking back this way where that uplift was really high and we saw those really high shelves. So the layer that we were at was really old, but now as we've hiked into this canyon, kind of met the slope of that uplift, and now we're starting to see some of this layer here is actually the top layer of those cliffs that I was at the beginning. We've got this lone spire hoodoo type formation here. Oh, with the flowers in the background, that is just incredible. Oh, there's a cave, it looks like. It's so hard to see on the screen if I'm pointing to the right spot. I think I was. You can also see in the wash here where a lot of the water has evaporated and left a bunch of salts and minerals along this edge. We've still got some water running down the middle, but look at the buildup on these plants. Water is obviously the driving force of most of these formations. Water and wind, but water causes erosion. And depending on the makeup of the soil, it's either easily eroded or not. And the difference of how erodible those rock layers are is why we get really cool formations in this stone. This spire here is most likely capped by a less erosive layer, while everything around it has eroded down. And so now you get this just tower left. And you see some of the water's carving out in this layer of rock, so eventually this will most likely fall and be washed away. And for that same reason, I will not be climbing back into there because some of this looks pretty fragile and I don't want it falling on me. So I was gonna touch on the geology a little bit more back towards the start where there's that really tall wall of rock, just because you can see the layers there really well. But this more crumbly, big, round boulder layer that we've hiked to, which was originally at the top of that wall and now it's level with where we're at. This is ash flow tuff, which is where a bunch of volcanic ash and boulders were deposited here and cooled and form this layer. Most of the layers here are volcanic with some interlying, just sedimentary beds from rivers and lakes and whatnot in between volcanic eruptions. There, I don't know, you can see the lip of a cave, it looks like. I don't know if I can get up there though to look in that. I see footprints, so someone else has come up here. I'm excited to head over that way. I've gotten up above it. I don't think it's very deep. It doesn't really look like it goes that far. Don't know that I can get all the way over to it though, because a lot of this is very crumbly, which isn't hard to imagine knowing that it was originally volcanic ash and rock. All right, let's head over that way. A little more reminiscent of hoodoos that you'll see in Utah. Not fully formed. These two are. These red-capped layers remind me a lot of the Needles District in Canyonlands National Park, just on a much smaller scale. Got a little spire there. There's a little tiny cap on. Wow.
I think this is about as far as I'm going to go in this direction because there's a whole nother side that I want to check out because I think some of the formations over there are going to be really cool and really vibrant. But if you can see on this far cliff, that top layer is that kind of rocky, crumbly tuff that I was in before. So the ridge kind of keeps coming along this way and the fault, and it's uplifting along here. And so now we're getting that cliff face again with that layer of tuff all the way at the top. And you can see all the other layers interspersed, and they get older and older as you go down. I think I mentioned it, but this is made up of 18 different layers of lava flow and then sedimentary layers in between that were deposited by rivers and lakes in between those volcanic activities. And so some of those volcanic layers, that lava solidifies and it gets really hard, and that's a lot more resistant to erosion than the sedimentary beds that like the rivers have put down, which is why we get this really cool formations in the rock, because some of those harder lava layers aren't eroding as fast as the layers below them, and so you get these badland hoodoo looking formations, and it's really beautiful. And these rock layers are millions of years old. That very top layer, that tuff, is the youngest layer, and that was deposited about 12 million years ago by a volcano which is now 40 miles away. Because of the fault that runs here, on one side you've got this cliff face and this uplift of all this volcanic layer, and on the other side of the fault you have that volcano. And so over the millions of years, as that fault has moved the two plates alongside, that volcano has now moved 40 miles, I think, east of this location, which is insane. It's so hard to grasp the time that it has taken to form all of this. I mean, we're just here for a blink of it. Oh, one other thing I almost forgot to mention is that this area is also a hotbed for fossils, and I believe a lot of the fossils found here have been helpful in dating some of these rock layers, and also kind of matching up the geology like all across California, and being able to match up fossils from rock layers here and rock layers somewhere else, and getting an idea of this broad geologic timescale and picture. I believe just some of the fossils found here have been saber-toothed tigers, horses, camels, rhinoceros, and many, many more. And we are back at this main cliff face. You can really see all of those layers on display, and you can tell which ones are more solid and haven't eroded as much, because they just kind of cap these other ones that are eroding away. And then all the way at the top is that same pink, crumbly, tough layer that I was hiking in all the way that way. I really don't know how to like portray the magnitude of this. This is insane. To show you inside of here. This is crazy. Alright, we've made it to the other side, the other area that puts these formations on show. And I think we'll be able to get a little more up close and personal with these formations on this side. See that red layer at the very top. Also, if we look across the very noisy highway, on the other side of this ridge is where I was hiking before. So this whole layer that's sloped upwards, again, is that ashflow tuff, that like pink crumbly stuff. And this is just like the full layer of it, which was at once horizontal, but now it's been uplifted. And on the other side is where it's eroded away, and now we can see all those other layers. And the same thing's happening on this side. This looks like another planet. Let's check out this little window. Can you see the moon rising up over there? Wow. Check out that one. This one's like a UFO. Now just imagine these big boulders coming tumbling down from up there. I feel like wow is all I've said in this video, but I mean, that pretty much sums it up. All right, I've just continued walking along this ridge. I don't know how much farther I'm gonna go. I don't know how much more there is to see, but the sun is starting to get low and I don't want to be out here too late. I'm kind of just in this little canyon now. I think right now is a good time to start heading back in the direction I came. I'm gonna kind of take a wide way, but for the most part, I think that's what there was to see. I have made it to my campsite for the night. I got done about half of the things I wanted to get done today, and so I think tomorrow I will try and get the other half done. So I will pick up in the morning. All right, it is the next morning and I've hiked to the top of this ridge because I wanted to talk about the fact that where I am right now is somewhat of a convergence of 3 geologic provinces. So to start, you can kind of see off in this direction. We've got the Mojave, all that flat area and those mountains out there. And then off in this direction, we're at the very southern end of the Sierra Nevadas. So off in that direction, you get the Sierra Nevadas. And then in this direction becomes the Basin and Range geologic province. And actually in this direction is Death Valley, which I realized from my campsite I could see Telescope Peak, which is a peak in Death Valley. I was actually on the other side of Telescope Peak a few weeks ago to see Lake Manly, but this time I could see it from the west side. And it's really cool that I could actually see Death Valley from there, because another interesting historical fact, I guess, about this place is that it is tied to the Death Valley 49ers. And if you don't know what the Death Valley 49ers are, basically these two parties, Bennett Arcane Party and the Jayhawk Party, were trying to head west from Utah as part of the gold rush. So they ended up leaving from Salt Lake City, but on an attempt to take a shortcut, they actually got lost in Death Valley, and they came to the Panamint Range and kind of got stranded because they couldn't find a way through those mountains. And so the Jayhawkers decided that they would abandon their wagons and hike through the mountains, and eventually they found the prehistoric trade route that ran through here, and that's what they used to make their way around kind of the south end of the Sierra Nevadas. The Bennett Arcane family, they ended up just stopping where they were in Death Valley and setting up camp, and they sent 2 party members ahead to hike through and find help. I believe they thought that the Panamint Range was the Sierras, and so they thought they just needed to get someone to the other side and there would be help, but obviously that wasn't the case. And so the 2 people that they sent ahead had to cross the Panamint Range, come through here, head south until they could finally find help and come back and rescue the rest of the family, which I believe when they returned, the things are getting pretty dire at the camp because obviously they only had so many supplies. But yeah, so that is just another interesting fact about this place and like all the history that is tied to it. Well, that is about it for today. Thank you for joining me on this adventure, and if you liked this video, consider leaving a like, and if you want to join me on future adventures, please consider subscribing. But that's pretty much it. See ya! I was too short to peek in from the other side. It's really steep on that side, so I couldn't reach it, but hopefully you saw me wave.